Back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh, and today we're bringing you a very special episode. I'm doing this alone because as we wrap up Top 5 February, and we've brought you the top 5 parts of the game, I wanted to bring you kind of the top 5 moments in Card Talk history. One of the things we do in the Extravaganza Month is celebrate our birthday. February celebrates our 8 years bringing you content to the Lord of the Rings community. So, and over those 8 years, I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of episodes. I think at last count, we had on our audio feed something like 360-ish episodes, which is a huge catalog of episodes. Most of those episodes are about a single card, but some are guest episodes where we talk to guests, and some are compilation episodes. Some have to do with our Extravaganza Month. And so, but for the most part, we bring you a card a week and we talk about it, and that's been a lot of fun. The goal of Card Talk has always been to inspire you, the listener, to look at cards in a different way and maybe build decks with some sort of card that you haven't thought about before, or even a card that you haven't really thought about in a particular way before. We're just happy to bring you that content. Everybody here at Card Talk loves doing that, and we wouldn't have stuck around for 8 years if people didn't appreciate what we do. That said, one of the most favorite things that I get to do for me, and again, I'm not asking the guys for their input on this. One of my favorite things to do is bring guests on the show. We've had over 40 guest shows. So we've had a significant number of guests, and we have brought all sorts of designers on the show. We've brought other creators of the game in the show, and we also just bring folks into the show, kind of regular players in the game. And every time we have a guest on the show, it's just been a lot of fun. So my top 5 moments actually all have to do with guests that have been on the show. And that's kind of on purpose because, we do a show, we talk about the cards and stuff, but the most memorable moments are when we bring in somebody else to talk about their opinions or talk about their cards and stuff like that. So what I'm doing here is bringing you Dave's top 5 Card Talk moments over the past 8 years. And we're going to kick this off with a moment that maybe not a lot of people had heard. When we're recording with guests, we do we do some stuff before we record the show proper. We talk to them, especially if it's somebody that we haven't talked to in a while, try to make them feel comfortable. If it's somebody that we have talked to or have a relationship with, we're just catching up because we're friends with a lot of these folks. So, just catching up is something that we do. And so this is probably the time that I most lost it in one of my pre-podcasting discussions with a person. This is Caleb, and this actually made it onto the podcast because we put it post outro. So you have to go to the Superlative Caleb show and then go all the way to the end and then listen, because it didn't really have anything to do with what we were talking about, but it was just so hysterical. And so this is my number 5 moment, and I'm calling this Banana Hammock Aragorn. So take a listen.
I don't know. Next year's swag is going to be, I don't know how you're going to feel about it. So, I mean, I'm sure you'll be fine with it. I don't mean that, but.
Is it like, it's like a picture? It's my Thalian art, but it's been abused.
Yeah.
Like, they all
It's
How did you know?
It's all the female heroes, but they're over sexualized with like big boobs and small waists and completely unrealistic. So no, I'm just kidding. That's
I'm all for that.
yeah.
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum when they're like, they're over sexualizing everything in games. I'm like, no, it's not enough.
right.
We need to get Rob Liefeld to come in and do all the art for us.
Eowyn is wearing far too much clothing in all the pictures.
Yeah, right.
If Aragorn could be wearing his banana hammock in the next art, that would be great. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm.
You should have been recording all this.
I know. This is the best part of the show, right?
We got Aragorn in a banana hammock. We got Rob Liefeld doing the art.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. Oh my goodness.
Images in my head now that are going to be there forever.
Right.
There's going to be There's going to be a neutral Aragorn. That's banana hammock Aragorn.
Banana Gorn.
Oh my god, I needed this. I have been
podcast goals right here.
I have been Caleb, I have been
All right, Grant, you got to take over. Dave's lost it.
You've incapacitated them.
You've been practicing for this, Grant. You're not along for the ride anymore.
Yeah.
It's right.
Oh my god.
I think you killed him, Caleb.
If I couldn't see him on camera, I'd be worried.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right.
I'll tell you, I've been moving for about 3 weeks. Like, if you look at my house, like, this is my third floor, like, the couch is all torn apart, like, everything's out. Things are empty. There's boxes everywhere. Like, for 3 weeks straight, I've been packing up, like, just complete, like, I needed to laugh at Banana Hammock. That's what I needed to do.
Yeah. Dude, I know exactly what you mean. 2020 was rough. 2021's off to a rocky start.
Yeah.
That's where you can.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So Banana Hammock Aragorn confirmed, right? We can announce that on the podcast.
Right, yeah. Next year's Gen Con alternate
art Aragorn. And the most recent one, he has practice because he's holding that thing, the torch so close to the fire. Now he's gonna be holding this.
Caleb, you broke him. You broke our host.
It was a hit job. Cardboard of the Ring sends their regards.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh, where's Card Talk After Dark when you need it? Oh my god.
There you go.
Well,
I guess.
what we're doing right now,
Okay.
David. So
This
good.
has got to be for real. Like, we got to just get this done. Oh, okay. Let me. Okay, so, yeah. Oh, this is
Breathe,
good.
David. Just breathe.
Come back down to Middle Earth with us.
Okay. Oh my god, I can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Welcome to
Just
the podcast.
Seriously, someone else has to start recording.
Okay.
Ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Unfortunately, I can't.
It's all right. Yep.
It's Grant that I feel sorry for. It's like 4 a.m. where he is. Okay. I know.
It'll be 4 a.m. by the
know.
time we're finished, I tell you.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so
All right.
I'm ready. Ted, are you ready? Okay, Grant, are you good?
I'm all set, bud.
And Mr. Grace,
I'm going for the ride.
are you good? Okay.
So, I mean, it still makes me laugh thinking about Banana Hammock, Aragorn, and, that was recorded several years ago now, and there actually is a neutral Aragorn that Alep has put out, but it's not Banana Hammock Aragorn. That would be really funny. Anyways, we even had a patron of the show send us a copy of Strange Eon's version of Banana Hammock Aragorn that was really hysterical. So, anyways, it's just, a lot of lightheartedness. And maybe there's a chance that we'll see some alt art of Banana Hammock Aragorn. Maybe Farcom, the C-Stan has his fantasy art commission Patreon. Maybe we can get C-Stan to do a Banana Hammock Aragorn. Probably not, though. The next clip comes from a guest episode. It was just it was from a patron who donated at a certain level for a long enough time and was able to just come on the show and talk about his favorite card. And so this next clip is from Russ, and this made my list because this clip shows us kind of the power of talking to other people about the game. Not just card talk, but having a community like we have that's very strong around the game and like to get ideas and get suggestions. Card talk's easy because we do this, but you can interact with the community in a lot of different ways. And so Russ came on the show to talk about his favorite hero, which was Elrond. And about halfway through the show, we were talking about Elrond and Elrond only, and then I said we should probably talk about the most powerful attachment in the game. And it struck a chord with me, this particular thing, because Russ had no idea what we were talking about. And that's not an indictment on Russ, but it's just a thing that when you talk to people about the game, you get ideas. And so Russ didn't know about Vilya, and so Ted and I were happy to bring the idea of Vilya to Russ. And so I bring you this as kind of an interesting aside here, or as an interesting moment where somebody in the community didn't know about a card, and you can see the wheels turning in Russ there, or you can hear it if you're listening to the audio only. So here's my Russ clip.
And I mean, if you're playing this game, you like hard things, so you might as well pick up the Silmarillion, right? Well, I mean, Russ, we've been on the horn here talking about Elrond for 15 minutes, and we have yet to talk about the major attachment that goes on him, right? Like, do we talk about Vilya when we talk about
Vilya,
Elrond,
please.
His ring.
Talk about his attachments,
right? Do we talk about his ring?
Wow, I feel dumb. I've never put that in there.
But that's I think is what's so great about the not just the deck building options that you have, right? Like, you can put Elrond in a deck and not put Vilya in a deck and have him still be just as potent, right? So,
I'm at a loss for words. I've never done put that in the deck before. I don't know why. I know what it is.
Well,
yeah,
Ted,
why don't you read it to us? You got it in front of you?
No, because I've never played it before.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Ted, go ahead. Tell us about Vilya and what.
I'll just tell us
about Vilya, won't you?
It's a 2-cost neutral attachments. It says attached to Elrond, And it says Elrond gains the spirit resource icon, so he becomes both spirit and lore. And it has an action that says exhaust Vilya and exhaust Elrond to reveal the top card of your deck, and you may play or put into play the attached card. And if you can't, it goes to the bottom of your deck or something. I'm doing this from memory, so that's roughly what it does. If you can't play the card, it just goes to the bottom of your deck if you get a unique ally that's already in play that you can't play. And yeah, man, Elrond, wielder of the Ring of Power, right? He came out with this card, and I was like, holy smokes, not only did they print Elrond, they printed his Ring of Power, and it's super freaking powerful.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I would have to put that in my deck. I don't know why I never did.
Oh, give it a run.
Well, I was gonna say that the one deck that C-Stan made, and Russ, I know that you're not like a researcher. You play basically what feels good and what feels fun to play. But the one deck, the deck that was built to beat every quest, was an Elrond Vilya deck. Was a deck that could just pull out any ally whenever, because that's what you do. If the top card of the deck is Gildor and Glorian, you draw it and you put it into play. So that's another reason that it helps Sylvans, right? Like all those when enter play effects, you can use Vilya and bring out your Sylvan and do whatever. But
I will definitely put it in my deck. Yes.
See,
Yep,
you get to learn stuff when you come on the show too, Russ.
Yeah,
See that? You know what? That's one of the reasons I love your show, because I learn so much from it, and it helps me enjoy the game that I love already. And that's why everyone that should listen to this should become a Patreon immediately. At the very least, $1, if not $5 or $10. Come on, guys.
Love the plug, Russ.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's good. I may remove that from here and put it as like a separate commercial. We'll just start running that into the episodes.
To follow up, I ran into Russ at Con of the Rings. He lives local to Con of the Rings, not terribly local, but he lives within a reasonable driving distance, I guess, to Con of the Rings. And so I ran into him at Con of the Rings a couple of times, but the most recent time that I ran into him, he did say that he started putting Vilya in that Sylvan deck of his. And so he said it runs even better with Vilya, which we would probably agree is the case. So good on Russ for finding out about a card. Good on Russ for building a deck with Vilya. And so it's again, love that moment of Card Talk. Just the realization of a card is it's priceless in this game. The next group is a little more personal, and I say group because I'm going to put these two together. So it's actually a top 6 list, but I'm going to group these two together as one, and you'll see why in a second. During Couples February, we brought together a whole bunch of couples in the game, meaning like Eowyn and Faramir was a possibility. I don't think we'd ever did Eowyn and Faramir, but we did, Faramir and Boromir, Theoden and Theoden, father-son. We did Aragorn and Arwen, any Aragorn and Arwen, and how they interact together. So we did couples in the game, and then we did couples kind of surrounding the game. And we had Caleb and MJ come on the show talking about Lothariel and Aemir and talking about that design because they had just been released, or Lothariel had just been released, or at least spoiled at the time. So, we had that. But a little more personal to me is I was able to bring my own daughters on the show and talk about the card. And so while the game has not impacted them at all, so that the game depth of the show was of those shows were not wasn't there. It's just always special to me that my kids take an interest in what I do. So I'll start off with Ava, my older daughter, and so here's her intro to the show and how she began her episode of Couples February.
Hi guys, welcome back to Fart Podcasting, where we
Fart talk.
podcast about how we fart, and we fart into the microphone. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh, and I am so excited this month because this month is Couples February. And as part of Couples February, I thought it was going to be, it would be really nice for me to bring on people that are important in my own life and part of my own couple. And so here we have guest hosting with me is my oldest daughter, Ava. Ava, how are you today?
I'm good, Dave. How are you?
Everybody, she's been dying to call me Dave.
No, I haven't. Yeah,
Yes,
I have.
yeah, you have. So, and so Ava, just a little bit. Let's talk just a little bit about you before we get into the card game or the card that you picked for today.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? How long have you been interested in Lord of the Rings?
0 seconds. Hi guys, I'm Ava Walsh, and I'm from New Jersey, and I'm not interested in Lord of the Rings, even though it's a really cool movie. I don't play anything about it, but that's okay, cause I'm here to talk about the cards.
And you know what? Even though she doesn't like my my card game that I loved so much, I still love her because she's my oldest daughter, and that's why she's on Couples February.
I love that kid. And so in that intro, you can hear her. She says that she's been. I say she's been dying to call me Dave, and then she's like, no. And then she goes, okay, yeah, I have. And it's funny because my younger daughter, Chloe, now, she calls me Dave all the time, and her friends actually call me Dave. And it's really funny. Ava, my older daughter, does not call me Dave ever, but Chloe does. And so, how do you separate your kids? Put one kid over another. You don't, so you group them together. And so here's Chloe's intro, and you can see the difference in them, and you can hear the difference in them and their personality. And so here's Chloe's intro.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Chloe Walsh, and today, since it's Couples February, I am very excited to welcome this very special guest on our show, Dave Walsh.
Hey, thanks, Chloe, for having me. How are things going with you?
Great. Oh, yeah, so which card will we be talking about today?
Well, I decided that when you and I were talking about coming on the show, I thought it would be really neat if you and I would talk about the new Smeagol card. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I did this, I asked you which card you think we should talk about, and what card did you say?
Smeagol.
Smeagol!
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because Smeagol only just came out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I really liked Smeagol, and just to give you an idea of what Smeagol is a 3 threat cost lore hero. He's got 2 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, and 3 hit points. And
2 willpower, guys.
he's got the trait Golem, which is one of the only cards,
Yeah.
Golem cards in the deck, or in the card pool. and
Yeah.
he cannot have attachments. And during the setup, he shuffle 2 copies of Stinker into the encounter deck.
Stinker? Who's Stinker?
And then the response is, after you travel to a location, raise your threat by 1 to draw 1 card. But then after Smeagol gets,
eats those rabbits in his hands.
Eats those rabbits in his hands. That's right. When he eats those rabbits in his hand. Actually, if you draw a Stinker, that makes him flip over to his Golem side.
What's Stinker?
Stinker is the encounter cards that you're supposed to add to the deck. See, there's a copy of Stinker right there.
Oh.
Okay. So you add that card to the encounter deck.
Oh, he's very
So that's Golem. That's a picture of Golem.
Wait, that's Golem and that's Stinker?
Golem is called Stinker.
Oh.
This actually, Stinker actually represents that part of the Lord of the Rings book where Sam and him get into a fight with each other.
Oh, okay.
In Shelob's lair. Oh. And so, it's interesting. For anybody who's a super fan of the show, which I don't know if we have super fans out there, but we as a family, personally, outside of Card Talk, we've been through a whole bunch of changes. In the 8 years that the show has gone on, my wife has changed jobs. I have changed jobs. I now teach in the building that my kids go to school in, which is kind of funny because I get to show their classmates those episodes of when they were so much younger, and one teacher went so far as to play the episode for the whole class, and it's a lot of fun. We'll say that we've moved, we've gone through some personal trials and tribulations along the way. And so I'm just happy that my kids wanted to be a part of this at some level. And so it's just a super special moment in my Card Talk podcasting career, right? Like I really loved when they were on the show. Another part that I loved of Couples February is, we were bringing couples that had to do with Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings card game. But I reached out to a podcast that I listened to, and it's a married couple, Greta and John Carswell, and they run the Tolkien Road podcast. And it's still an active podcast. You can still go and listen to what they had to say. And they were kind enough to spend an evening with us at Card Talk. And so if you want to listen to the whole thing, again, I'm very proud of this that whole interview and how it went, and the whole show. If you want to see the show or listen to it, I'll put all the links down below so you can see it. For all of these shows that are associated with the clips, but this was part of Couples February where we brought the Tolkien Road in, and one of the things that we did that I wanted to do was play games that had to do with the cards. And the final game that we played, I wanted to highlight how careful the designers of the game are when they're creating heroes and characters and cards. And so it was hard because Greta and John don't know anything about the game, but they know a lot about Lord of the Rings. And so I was kind of putting the designers to the test. And so we did that. And so let me bring in this whole clip, and this is the longest of the clips. This is the Carswells clip where we're playing the designer challenge game. So go ahead, take a listen or watch, and then I'll come back and kind of wrap it up. Do you have time to play one more game? Because I
Sure.
love the whole game thing.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to play this game, actually this game was the one that I was looking forward to more than the first one, because I think I spoke to you about how much I think that the game designers really care for the intellectual property of Tolkien, right? They're not just trying to put something on the table that makes money that's, just gamey, right? So there are cards that are in the game that I believe, and maybe Ted and maybe Grant believe, that are also like super thematic. Like if I could give you the name of the card, I would guess that you could maybe guess what the card does in the game based on just the name of it. Okay. So I want to put the kind of the designers to the test a little bit to see if, again, our lore experts can do this. In order to explain this, and Ted and Grant, feel free to jump in a little bit, but I'm going to explain the game just a little bit, just on the surface, just so you have some idea of what goes on. Okay. So it is a card game, and in the card game, you have this threat. Okay. So threat is represented, is a thing that represents kind of, how much attention you are drawing to yourself, to the forces of Mordor. The higher your threat, the more Mordor and Sauron understand, like see you and want to do stuff to you. Okay. Yeah. So if you get up to 50 threat, you lose the game. Okay. So that's fine. Okay. And then there's 3 major things you get to do in the game. So your characters get to do 3 things. Okay. So they can do something called questing, which is like they explore locations or, like do things that are like exploring. And then the things that you would expect things to do in a game, which is attack and defend. Okay. So like, and it's much more complex than that, but for what we're trying to do, like that's what it is. Okay. So that's, so there's this threat tracker that goes up to 50. You get to 50, you lose the game. Okay. And the game can trigger off of, like, the higher the threat, the more the game tries to kill you because you're doing all these crazy things to try to, like, here I am. Right. And then, so then there's this questing, attack, and defense. Okay. So, does that seem reasonable, guys? Is that,
I'm following you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, that's a great recap. Your characters are always trying to accomplish an objective in the game, basically.
Okay.
Right. So those are the three ways to do the objectives.
Got it.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to just give you some things here. So if you had to guess, if there was one character that has the highest threat to begin with, okay? So characters have threat, okay? The higher your threat, the closer you are to Sauron noticing you. So there's one character that has higher threat than any other character. What character do you think that would be?
Okay, let me ask a clarifying question for my sake. So I would have initially understood that and just thrown out there Sauron.
Yeah.
Right. Good guys.
So
good
threat
guys.
in terms of good guys.
Right. So if you have the higher the threat that you get, the more likely Sauron is to do stuff to you. You're becoming a greater.
Come and kill you.
Yeah, you're becoming a greater and greater threat to what he is doing.
Yeah, the higher the character's threat value, the bigger a threat they are to Sauron himself.
Got it.
The question basically becomes like, which of all the characters in the game, which are going to be all third age characters, like which one poses singly the greatest threat to him?
Threat to Sauron. Okay.
Now, do they have to be like good guys, or could they be kind of like bad guys that aren't Sauron?
I would say that for the game purposes, yeah, it could be like, so to give you an idea, Smeagol, even though he's like kind of a neutral bad kind of guy, is also a good character, and you can play him as a good character in the game.
Okay.
So like, but we're talking, mainly good guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
So who has the highest? Who is the highest threat to Sauron from the get go?
I could go a couple different ways here. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I know. Same.
And you're probably right in a lot of ways.
And
so
yeah, if they don't get it right, I bet they're going to get it very close.
Yep.
Like they'll be within an inch of her.
Anybody on the White Council, like
I was gonna say, Gandalf or Galadriel.
Yeah,
or Elrond.
Elrond. I mean, I'd probably go with like Galadriel or Gandalf, even above Elrond, because they've Gandalf is Gandalf. He's actually he's a Maiar, so he's not even just an elf. He's
right. Even Galadriel's not a Maiar.
He's an angelic being himself.
Right.
But then there's also Saruman, who's not exactly a good guy, but he was on the White Council, and he's like he's more powerful, at least in that time period, than even Gandalf is. But then there's Aragorn as well.
I know. I was thinking of Aragorn too. Yeah.
I would probably
Each give an answer that you think's more indicative, rather than trying to discuss it between yourselves, because you're just going to throw out like 10,000 answers.
Be succinct, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
let's see who's our guest. Who are we going to put our money on?
I've just got to go with Gandalf.
Gotta go Gandalf.
Yeah, but I mean, I like your case for Saruman too. So I don't know. I'll let you pick.
I'm going to say Gandalf just because I don't think Saruman falls into the category that we're talking about.
Possibly good guy. Yeah.
So I'm going to say Gandalf. We're going to say Gandalf.
I'm going to say Gandalf.
Ted, do you want to give him the answer?
You're 100% correct.
All right.
See, that's go ahead, Ted.
Characters have a threat value of the lowest printed threat value now is 3, and the highest of a hero is 14. And Gandalf is the only single character to have a 14 value. Many characters fall under him, like 12, 13. A lot of the characters you named are in that category,
right up there.
But no one, like Gandalf's only on that single highest tier. And exactly, the developers, I think, nailed it for exactly the reasons you said. Like, who's the biggest threat?
Yeah,
it's Gandalf.
Yeah.
Who's
Can
one
you
of my
play Saruman?
Yes,
as
you
a matter
can
of fact,
play.
Yeah, he's a card that's not yet released, but he's been spoiled, so he's coming out.
All right.
And
So
he's got a threat of 13, just below that of Gandalf.
Yeah.
But he's on par with Elrond.
Right, Elrond, who's 13.
Okay.
So you were right there, right, with all of them, but exactly your logic. And this is what I'm trying to say about the game for it follows along. So another Gandalf question, I'll give you so there's a card in the game called Favor of the Valar. Okay, so I assumed you may know what scene that refers to, or what part of the legendarium that refers to, but
I think I do.
So that refers to what?
Well, I would guess that it refers to the unfinished tales and the of the Astari, where it speaks about that when the wizards are sent over, there's 5 wizards sent over from the Blessed Realm to essentially do battle with Sauron, and Saruman is the one who's kind of like the de facto in charge guy, but Gandalf actually is sent along, and he's actually like favored. I forget which of the Valar it is. He's favored by. It's one of the. I think it's one of the. Is it? I think it may be Yavanna.
Maybe Yavanna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that what?
So that I think it's even more specific, because this is an event card in the game that does something, and I think it's specifically referring to the favor that Gandalf gets when he fights the Balrog.
Okay.
And so like he fights the Balrog and he gets favor, and there's an epic battle, and then something happens, right? So if you had to guess what the favor of the Valar does on a general sort of level, what would you guess that it does?
Just destroys whatever bad guy you need it to.
Almost. Flip it and reverse it, because the Valar probably don't want to do much to the bad guys, but they probably want to
help the good guys.
The good guys. Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually brings the easy thing to say is it kind of brings somebody back to life. If you die, it brings you back to life.
Because he comes back. Okay, got it.
Right.
I'm following it now.
See?
Yeah.
So it's like that favor of the Valar.
When he comes back as Gandalf the White, right?
Right.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. So a couple more of these, and then we'll move along. So this is for you, Greta, because I know you love Bomber.
I do love Bomber.
Yeah. And why do you love Bomber?
Because Bomber, he's jolly and fat and funny.
Right. So Bomber is a hero in the game. He's a character in the game.
Awesome.
Right? And he's got an ability. Okay. And so if you had to guess what his ability is, what is it? And so here's the thing. I'll tell you this, and this is super thematic, is that there's a lot of dwarves like Thorin. Like if you get 5 dwarves in play in the game, like it triggers a whole bunch of other things that happen. Okay. So there's a thing that you get 5 dwarves in the game, you get bonuses, right? So what's
Okay.
Bomber's ability?
5 bonuses. Okay.
What's
What-
Bomber's ability? Yeah. What do you think his special ability is?
Well, gosh, I mean, he's comedic relief, but that's probably not what you're going for.
No, that's. I mean, he is kind of, but that's what Ted is on our podcast. So that's.
Yeah. You always need one of those. You need at least one of those.
Right.
You know the answer? Okay.
No.
I'm just trying to think of all the things. I'm like, well, I definitely want him on my team in a drinking or eating competition.
Yeah. Right.
For sure.
Right.
You know, you're on the right path.
Am I on the right
path? Right.
Okay.
So the big hint is that you need either there's 5 or more. So like Bomber, like so. What does Bomber do?
Oh, does he count for more than one?
Yes.
Awesome.
And it's funny because that theme is over and over again in the books, and then we can play Bomber, and he counts for 2. Bomber counts for 2. Like he counts for 2 dwarves. That's great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And so, so this is really interesting. So there's also a card in the game called A Very Good Tale. Okay, and this I picked up only because of your podcast. So this is why I've included it in the show. So A Very Good Tale refers to when Gandalf meets Beorn and all of that craziness ensues. Okay. And so it comes from that book. So what it does is it allows you as a player, if you use A Very Good Tale, to pull cards from your deck, and you get to put in play a certain number of cards. If you had to guess how many cards you get to put in play, based on that, how many cards do you get to put in play?
So this relates to the Gandalf and Beorn meeting,
right?
How many cards? Oh goodness!
How many characters? How many could you put?
Oh,
and this is another one that
bit of a brainstorm. I'm trying to think about. Remember how they keep coming? They keep coming.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how many there.
It's 2 by 2.
It's 2 by. That's it.
Yeah.
They get 2 by 2.
Yeah.
That's right. They came in. Yes.
So
they came
it's
in.
2,
Okay.
right?
And then someone comes in. Bomber comes in all by himself.
Because Bomber, guess what Bomber does? He counts for 2. Yeah.
Nice.
So actually, if you play A Very Good Tale, you're allowed to look through your deck and find 2. It doesn't have to be dwarves, but you get to find 2 characters and put them into play, and so it simulates that whole thing.
I love this. That's really fun.
And this is what I'm saying about how attention to detail these guys do.
Absolutely, that's very cool. That's
awesome.
very, very cool. Yes.
Do you have time for one more, John?
Yeah.
This one's specifically for John.
Okay.
Not because Greta, you don't know, but just because I feel like this is right in John's wheelhouse.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You already gave me one just for me anyway, so this is only fair.
I know. Sorry, Ted and Grant, that I'm kind of forcing you out, but this is my geek moment.
No,
with the
please,
Carswells.
please, dote upon our guests. Yeah.
Dote upon our guests. Okay, so
Can I just ask real quick? Is Grant still awake? Grant, are you awake? Okay. This is amazing to me. I just, as an aside, because we can't see you, I keep thinking that maybe we're just going to start hearing snoring at some point.
We are hearing snoring. So Grant's fiance is snoring in the background, and so this episode of the Carswells is This episode of Card Talk is brought to you by Katie's snoring.
Well, I'm just impressed that you're still awake, Grant. Props. Seriously.
Like I said, I'm used to it being up with these guys.
Nice. What time is it there? I'm not good at time differences. What time is it there?
20 to 3.
It's 20 to 3?
Yeah.
So it's almost 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
3:42.
No, 2:42.
2:42. You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Wow. I'm even more impressed now. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hijack.
No, that's fine. That's great. And don't ask him how many kids he has, because he still hasn't kept track of the count. It's like,
oh, now I'm curious.
There's 5. He's got 5, right? So
That's awesome.
None of them count for 2. It's wild how that happens. Okay, so John, again, Greta, you can chime in on this, but this one I had in for John specifically. But
got it.
Okay,
pressure. You guys are 3 for 3, okay?
Right.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, they've gotten all of them
Don't
right.
spoil my
so-
record here,
Okay.
dude.
Yeah, right. Don't bring her down, John.
No, mm-mm,
That
mm-mm.
Villanova grad, she's got a.
That's right.
Yeah, she's okay.
Got
So
cred.
there's a card in the game that attaches to other cards. Like in the game, you can obviously. I'm avoiding things like weapons and armor. Those are considered attachments, so you can put them on and they attach to characters. Right? Does that make sense? Like equipment. Okay.
Sure. Okay. Got it.
So there is a card in the game called the Light of Valinor. Okay, that can only be attached to a certain race of characters. Which race of characters can it be attached to?
It seems logical that it would be elves, but I'm like,
I know that seems almost too obvious.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the extra credit that I want to get to. So you're right that it's elves, right? Right. But in the game, there's only Noldor and Sylvanelm, so it can be attached to any one of those, right? So but the game is, again, in my opinion, so well designed that there's actually one target that's super awesome for the Light of Valinor to come on. Okay, like you put it on this character. They were released together, and I think that it makes awesome thematic sense. Although if you've watched the movies, you would never know. That gives you another hint. Okay, so that's one character that you put this on. And then there's a secondary character that you can put the Light of Valinor on that's slightly less awesome, but still okay. So, but do you know who you would put?
So you're saying that you can put it on any elf?
You can put it on any elf, right?
Like
There's one particular character that it.
You could put it on Legolas. He's a Sylvan elf. He meets the prerequisite. But there's sort of an ideal target that is both good mechanically in the game and also very, very thematic.
I think I know.
Wait, so
I think I know.
Like
I
that you
think
can
I
use
know.
it against, or that like
no, he helps you do stuff.
special elf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Especially for a particular elf.
Right. And the other hint is, if you watched only the movies, you would never know.
Oh, well, now I'm not sure I know.
I'm kind of drawing a blank now.
I was going to say he's a first age elf, but that's all of them.
But
Well, I'm completely off base with my thoughts.
let me.
So.
Oh man, I feel like I feel like it's gonna come to me, and then I'll be like, duh.
It's not the. No, would it be the shipwright guy?
You're saying Círdan?
Círdan.
I will give you credit for that. He is the second most awesome target for the Light of Valinor.
I would just off the bat. I mean, I would guess that it's Galadriel.
That was my thought too, but then you said he.
I know, yeah. So I'm like,
I did say I didn't mean to say he, but it is a he. I did not mean to say he.
I was thinking Galadriel as well, but then the movie would have given that away.
So it's not
Right.
Galadriel.
It's not Galadriel. Who's Galadriel?
Hey, Ted.
Him.
Yes.
Hey, Grant. It's not Arwen either, right?
No.
No, it can't be Arwen.
Are we talking about Elrond?
No. But if I said it's not in the movie and it can't be Arwen,
Oh, I see. I don't know. But I got
Brenda's like,
the
I
second
see.
vote, so
I
I'm
see.
good. I'm good.
He's from the House of Elrond.
Right.
He's classified as being from the House of Elrond.
Is it? But this is a third age character, right?
Well, he was around in the first age.
He was around in the
yeah,
first
and
age.
obviously he needs the Light of Valinor for a lot of reasons in the first age, but he's around in the third age. He doesn't play much of a role in the War of the Ring, like in the literature. I don't know.
Yeah. I can't. I'm gonna kick myself. I don't like.
Yeah,
I was.
Okay, pardon my French, but who's the most badass dwarf badass elf that exists in the Legendarium? That exists in the first age, does a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and then also is in the books. Namely the Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh wait. What's the G?
Yep.
What can I think of?
Yeah.
I'm getting mixed up. It's not Glorfindel. I'm getting mixed up with it's Gilgalad.
He's not in the. Nope. You were right the first time.
What, Glorfindel?
Yeah, Glorfindel.
Yeah.
Right. So the movie thing is they replace Glorfindel with Arwen, like all the things that Arwen does in the movie, Glorfindel does in the book, like comes out with Asphaleth and rescues Frodo and does all that stuff. But in the First Age, which I have found out through your podcast, like he battles like every Balrog in the face of the earth, like hundreds. It seems like hundreds of Balrog. Like he just keeps killing them and killing them and killing them and killing them. Like, and then he dies, and then they give him back, like the Light of Valinor. Like he's back, and then it's good.
And then they don't even put him in the movie.
Yeah, and then they don't put it like.
Yeah, I thought that was a big disgrace to his character. But
There's a lot of that in the movies, unfortunately. So yeah.
Yes, true. Well,
You give him the Light of Valinor, and he's particularly powerful in his hands. Then
Yeah, like so what you can do with him with the Light of Valinor is a lot. So what it does is it allows you to, so you can use a character to quest or to attack or defend. Like you can usually use them to do one of those. And so by using the Light of Valinor, you can use him to quest and then also attack or defend. But attack is really his attack power is good. Is good. You'd always want to use him to attack. So he can do two things in a turn as opposed to just one when he has the Light of Valinor. And so that's why Círdan can also do those things too. So it works itself out.
very cool.
It's funny because Caleb has come on our show and other shows. We're not the only show that has access to Caleb, but where he laughs and says Bomber counts for 2. So the fact that Greta was able to, with a little coaxing, but not much, was able to understand that Bomber counts for 2 dwarves was really special, and I think that speaks to the design of the game and the designer's intention with the game. And then the more serious cards, like Favor of the Valar and Gandalf's threat level and how Gandalf is so powerful, and like all of the cards, the Light of Valinor and Glorfindel getting the Light of Valinor. Like it's really it really speaks to the care with which the designers designed the game. And I think that everybody out there that's listening to this can appreciate what happened there kind of on a deeper level. And I think that that's important for us, that as we surround ourselves in this community, that there was a lot of care from the top since Nate started this game, before 2011, because it had to be designed. So I'm sure he started in 2010 or even before that, like all the way down to, the last Aaron Mithrin campaign that was designed by Tyler Parrott. It's just the care with which people handled the game and the IP is phenomenal. And so with that, I bring you the most poignant clip that I've ever had on Card Talk. And so this clip is actually still talked about. Just last week, I got a message from a fan saying that that this clip was kind of the best of what Card Talk has to offer, which is really special to me as the guy who makes kind of comes up with the episodes, edits all the episodes, releases all the episodes. I listened to an episode 3 times before it even hits your ears out there, just because I have to edit it, and so by the time it reaches your ears, I kind of am sort of mechanical about it. So to hear the feedback that I've gotten about this particular clip, this particular part of Card Talk is really special to me. And so this is Caleb, again, in the Superlative Caleb episode where we're winding up Superlative February. He came on the show, and while we talked about cards in the game, I took a detour at the beginning of the show, and I wanted to talk about how Caleb's faith has impacted his game design, because there's some parallels between him and his game design and how Tolkien kind of wrote Lord of the Rings. And so, Lord of the Rings is obviously not an allegory, and I talk about this a little bit, so before I run the risk of repeating everything that I say, how about we just start the clip, and you can listen to what Caleb has to say about his faith and the game.
One of the things that they said was really interesting, and they've said, and this is documented in one of Tolkien's letters, they said the Lord of the Rings, that Tolkien said, and he's quoted as saying this, is that the Lord of the Rings is, of course, a fundamentally religious and Catholic work. Unconsciously so at first, but consciously in the revision. And they went through examples about how the ring was destroyed on March 25th, which is a Catholic date related to Easter. I think it's called the Feast of the Annunciation or something like that. The walkers left Rivendell on Christmas, so he added these Catholic things. Of course, we all know that Tolkien wasn't a guy that loved strict allegory and things, but obviously he was influenced about things in life. But I've been dying since last year to really ask you, since Tolkien was kind of governed by his faith, I was wondering, and I know that you're a man of faith and you talk about faith publicly. So I was wondering, how has faith governed your own direction in your Tolkien creation, in the design of this game throughout the years? Because you were a designer of this game for 8 years or 7 years or however long it was. So, how has your faith governed the design of the game?
I just want to say, first of all, I take it as a pretty big compliment that being friends as we are, that you feel like you can look at my life and your assessment is that I'm, clearly a person of faith and that I'm, comfortable sharing that publicly, because that is obviously very important to me. Like I don't try to hide that I'm a Christ follower at all. It's actually something that I feel is central to my life. Like I feel that being a Christian or a Christ follower means that it should permeate, your faith should permeate every area of your life. So it's not something like that I just think about on Sundays when I go to church. It's like my faith comes with me to work. My faith is with me when I parent my children, or when I love my wife, or when I talk to my neighbors, or if I come on a podcast. But at the same time, if I'm invited to a podcast that's talking about card games, I'm not trying to do a little bait and switch where like, yes, I'll come on your podcast, but then I'm going to talk about my faith. Or, in the case of working on the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games, right?
Yeah.
It is the studio that pays me to work on the game, and it is their game, right? It's not my game. It belongs to the studio that pays for the license, and I get to work on it as part of my job, So for me, my faith plays an important role in the way that I approach that job. The word that comes to mind is integrity. Like, Christ teaches us to do everything out of love, and respect. And so I try to bring that to work through anything that I'm asked to do. I try to do it, with integrity and with respect for that project and the goals of that project. And so in this case, the goal of the Lord of the Rings, the card game, is to provide just the highest quality entertainment that we can. And so that's my focus when I work on the game. It's not to try to weave a subtle message in there or anything like that, right? Like, I love that I'm at a point in my career where I can be on a podcast and you can ask me a question about my faith, and that I was able to get to a place like this without trying to make a point of it, right? That it's just, to hear you ask the question, to you it just felt like a natural question because of what you know about Tolkien and what you know about me. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to be thought of that way, but unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, there isn't like any kind of, like I don't pray before I design a card, like I don't, I don't try to write stories that I feel like reflect, Christian parables or anything like that. I really just try to do my job with the utmost respect and the utmost integrity for the property, for the people involved. And if it leads to an opportunity like this, where it feels like it's a proper context that I can talk about my faith on a more personal level, then I'm happy to do that. Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, it's ultimately, it's a secular game, right? It's a secular company. We don't advocate as a studio. We don't advocate up, down, left, right on any particular faith or absence of faith or anything like that, right?
Sure. And I think I ask you just because, and I appreciate the honest responses, because I think that what you are relating to is what Tolkien relates to too when he talks about faith. Like, he was a deeply Catholic. He was raised by a Catholic mom, and his father figure was a Catholic priest, but he didn't write Lord of the Rings to be an allegory of the Bible. And like C.S. Lewis, when he wrote the Lion, the Witch, the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia, that's it. Like that was a distinct allegory, or can be argued that it was an allegory, but Lord of the Rings is not such. And so like he just weaved his or was influenced by his religion. And it's interesting to hear how religious influences play a role in design of Lord of the Rings, the Legendarium, but also Lord of the Rings, the card game. Like that's where the parallel came from me, and I was like very struck by that.
Yeah, if I was to say, anything about my faith with relation to my career, it would be that I do strongly believe that I owe a great deal, directly to Christ, as someone who believes in Christ and believes in the gospel and his teachings. I believe that I owe my career to that, because this is a job, kind of like you mentioned earlier, that I wasn't looking for. I just kind of happened into it. And depending on your faith stance or your view against faith, you might say that I lucked into it. But for me, this is honestly one of the biggest ways that I see God at work in my life is how I ended up where I ended up, and how I'm uniquely qualified for the job that I ended up with. Like, I just can't tell you how many times all these things from my past ended up becoming job assets that I never intended that way. I think you could look back at my life and draw a straight line from where I started as a child and my interests to where I am now, and it would feel like it all made sense. But of course, I didn't know any of that, ahead of time, right?
Surprise, so you're a game designer.
Yeah, that was your answer when you were 8 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? Game designer.
Right. No, that's what's so funny is it never entered my mind at any stage in my life to be a game designer. But looking back, I was always interested in game design. I was the kid in the neighborhood who came up with a new version of Kick the Can that was like way more involved. I was already adding Surge to games.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Caleb, how do you think?
And
how do you?
There's 2 cans.
Yeah, right. No, seriously,
right. The can makes an extra kick after
my
this kick.
The Can involves water guns and camouflage and like just all kinds of stuff, And then I was making my own board games, and I was collecting Marvel trading cards and looking at the stats on the back and trying to figure out how I could make a card game out of those stats. And like, so, when I look back, I go, boy, yeah, it all just kind of makes sense. Like, I was almost like meant to do this, and but like I said, it was never something that I pursued. And so, if we're going to talk about faith, and I could just quote one verse, it would be, when Christ teaches disciples, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and these things shall be added to you. added unto you. So this idea of like, I wasn't trying to get this job. I wasn't trying to go and find like, what's the perfect job for me? Not that I wasn't looking for a job,
Right. Right. Sometimes.
But it was like my goal at the time, I was literally doing youth ministry at the time.
Right.
My goal at the time was to figure out how I could serve Christ with my life. And then it just ended up here. And it's been a really awesome ride since then. And I'm super grateful for the opportunity that I have and the people I work with. And, I work with other Christians, and I work with atheists, and I work with all manner of wonderful people. And so it's just a real privilege.
Yeah. And it's really good to hear you say those things, because it just, to me, it's always, like I said earlier, it just struck a parallel that, because I knew you were a man of professed faith. Some people keep their faith private, and that's on them, but I know that you profess faith, and it's good to see it. I know that Tolkien professed faith, so the parallels there were just too good for me to not ask the question the next time you came on the podcast. So,
well, I'm going to leave this interview with a big head now, because I've been once compared to Mark Hamill and once brought up alongside Tolkien. So,
well, we're hoping to have you back next Thursday or next February. Yeah, right. But like, what do you think Jesus thinks of Surge? Like, come on, let's really get down to it. Like, that's really why I'm asking the question.
Those are the things
Christian is doomed. Come on, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How Christian can you really be? Counter effects.
Yeah, right. Doomed is the least Jesus-y thing in the world. No, I'm just kidding.
No, think about it. It's to test your faith, test your resolve. Can you get through it?
Oh yeah, right. That's what everything is. It's a test of faith, right?
Look at Grant now quoting like straight out of the book of James, right? Like, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kind.
Sometimes I feel like I'm Job here at this, like in a lot of these things, like. Anyways,
oh my God.
Yeah, so you can see how special that was. It had nothing to do with the game. It had nothing to do with a card, but you can see, how careful Caleb is and how he tries to really make sure that he lives up to the expectation that the community has. And I think that that's not unique to Caleb, but he's the one that came on the show and said it. I think that everybody who's had their hand in designing Lord of the Rings really takes care of the source material. I think that everybody cares about it, and that's why the game has been so successful. I consider this is the first not collectible card game. This is the first living card game that I know of that's been evergreen. So that means that the content is always going to be, not all the content, but that the 50 best scenarios are going to constantly be available, and that is a testament to the design of the game. If it wasn't designed as well as it was, it wouldn't have been evergreen. It wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have lasted as long as it did, and we wouldn't have such a great community surrounding this. So that's my personal show about my top 5 moments, top 6 moments, I guess, but top 5 moments in Card Talk history, or Card Talk shows. And so, we've been around for 8 years, and here's to 8 more years and another 360 shows. Whoa, that's a lot of editing. Okay, everybody. See you next week as we return to our regular format, and we bring you cards in the game and tell you how to use it, and suggest ways to use it, and kind of inspire you to build decks. Okay, everybody, have a great day.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.